in 2025, the San Jose Earthquakes might be back. I can't believe I'm saying that. We're going to talk about it a lot today on Wake Up MLS. And as usual, guys, especially for these latest transfer reactions that we have going live on the channel, today is no exception to how those videos have gone. I am joined by a fantastic individual. I'm honestly pleased to call him a friend, a colleague, and someone who's extremely knowledgeable on everything going on in this beautiful world of football, especially Major League Soccer. We got Ivan from Tectonic Takes here on the channel today to chat about this, honestly, bro, insane offseason. I can only imagine how happy you must be, Ivan. But before we get to your reactions and everything else, let's first talk about just how are things going, man. You know, we're having a good recording. I think in the middle of the day, talking about MLS, life's pretty good from my perspective. How are we doing today?
Wow. Even though my profession is teaching, not in football or soccer, I just want to just open my resume now and completely rewrite it with that intro because that was just incredible. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man.
But yeah, life's been pretty good with my teaching schedule. Just wrapping up winter break. So while I'm not lesson planning, I am watching soccer, writing my articles, discussing the games with my friends, among other sports too, like with NFL playoffs and other things. But yeah, life's pretty good. My wife and I are doing great. We're both teachers, so we get to connect on that, even if, the extent in which we connect about sports is I can convince her to watch an NFL game because she's a Swiftie, So, but yeah, I can't complain. Just getting the chance to talk to you and to share my thoughts with people, in podcasts or just chatting on social media or in person. It's just really fun.
Awesome, man. Well, look, we're lucky to have you here. So I want to waste no more time. Let's jump right in because there's a lot to cover on this video, right?
Yeah.
You guys, man, have been moving mad during this window. And it was needed, right? If we just think about the season you guys had last year, it was record setting, maybe, or close to it in the worst way possible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those kinds of records.
Yeah, no one wants to break those kinds of records. And you can see the frustration with guys like, again, right, your star player in Espinoza, and just the fan base, right? You've had some moments of, I guess you can call it glimmer, bright spots, right? Taking down LAFC last season, despite the ups and downs that we saw from the Quakes. There's a lot that we kind of unpack. I don't want this video to be just a reaction to 2024, but I think going into 2025, there's got to be a lot of excitement, right? And I think the spearhead of that has to be, the major change at the front. Right? You're bringing Bruce Arena in and a serial winner, really kind of royalty when you think of Major League Soccer and the U.S. men's national team. And now he gets a brand new project to come in here on the West Coast and revive a team in one of the most competitive markets, you could say, for Major League Soccer, in terms of Cali in general, right? Looking at the defending champions of the Galaxy, LAFC having all the success they've had. San Diego coming in, brand new side, and now there's a lot to be excited about with the Quakes. So let's start at the top with Bruce Arena. When that signing comes through, what was the reaction? Were you ecstatic or maybe a little more reserved?
It's always going to feel weird at first whenever a player or coach crosses that divide of the Cali Classico, whether it's San Jose Earthquakes to LA Galaxy, of course, the most famous example, Landon Donovan. If Quakes fans called him Judas when that move came through, because he was instrumental in putting the San Jose Earthquakes in that situation where they were winning MLS Cups in the 2000s. They were one of the best teams in MLS. He was on that World Cup roster in 2002 where they went all the way to the quarterfinals. Landon Donovan was the young player of the tournament. He meant so much to San Jose Earthquakes for him to just, okay, I'm going to the Galaxy now. And of course, you add David Beckham, you add Robbie Keane, and the rest is history. And the big person in charge of managing all those egos, Bruce Arena. So when it comes to his accomplishments in Major League Soccer, the national team, and being an American coach where there's a stigma surrounding that, the player stigma for Americans, I think, is kind of dissipated. You see a lot of Americans in Europe every weekend now, which wasn't the case a decade ago, but it is now. But in terms of coaches in Europe, you have the Brighton coach. Technically, he was born in Texas, but it's still really tough to break in there. But as far as his accomplishments in his career, Bruce Arena is one of the best American coaches of all time, if not the best. And any side in Major League Soccer would love to have his services. I know that there were some issues with New England Revolution, and I want to take Bruce Arena's words that he has taken the steps needed to improve himself, to educate himself, and to move on from that. And I want to trust that will be the case. Of course, being in the San Francisco Bay Area, we take diversity, we take respect very seriously. We want to be an inclusive community. So we would not have made that hiring, or the front office would not have made that hiring if there were still those lingering concerns. So Bruce Arena is going to have probably the biggest challenge of his career, certainly in the last 20 years, on his hand in terms of bringing San Jose Earthquakes back to respectability, back to relevance. How much of a shift can we expect from the lows of the lows in 2024 to now that there's some hope and optimism in 2025? I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it's certainly a great hire.
Yeah, no, it is a great hire. But you touched on one spot there, right? It's something to be excited about. The fans will love it, right? You now get a proven leader to come in and really shift things in a major way at the foundational level, which was needed. We all just kind of saw the Quakes. There were some talent on paper that you could get excited about, but it felt like the cracks had seeped in so deep that it may not even mattered, right? That you just needed kind of to go through the rebuilding phase. And I feel like what Bruce Arena now brings to this side is a strong layer of stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
A strong foundation built around a serial winner. So when you look at Bruce Arena now as the manager, despite, we'll talk about some of the big offseason moves you guys have made personnel wise, but in terms of just him as a manager, what's the expectation? Right? Like going into 2025 season, we're on the cusp of that now. A lot of excitement now from Quakes fans. What can they expect from this manager, and how will that impact the team?
I think we can expect that what may have been considered acceptable before in terms of the amount of effort in training, in performances, that's going to be a new expectation, a new bar set that Bruce Arena is going to provide. Luchi Gonzalez did the best he could. I'd like to think that, but Bruce Arena is in that pantheon of MLS coaches, and he didn't get there from just, okay, you're going to do what you need to do. You're going to give your performances, and then we'll figure it out. Everything is methodical with him. Everything is planned. Everything's structured, and players are going to have to fit into that structure. And he's looking far and wide for those players that he can trust, such as the New England Connection players. He's looking at players that have MLS experience, so two marquee signings in the striker position. And he's going to evaluate the current roster over the course of especially these first few months going into the summer window. He's going to give these players a chance. Hopefully the new voice is going to bring some of the struggling players like Carlos Grezzo, for example, to step up either to a new height or back to their previous form, or in Grezzo's case, his Ecuador form. In the same season where he was not performing at his best, he was playing for an Ecuador side that made it to the Copa America quarterfinals. So there's clearly a player in there.
Yeah. And that's what you want, right? Revive what we know as fans is deep inside. And I think that's what he will, right? Whether that's man management, whether that's tactical shifts, right? I don't know if he's going to come in year one and just completely make the Quakes a top 4 team. I have heard some crazy shouts about that, by the way. And we'll talk about that towards the end of the video today. But I have heard some very prominent creators giving Quakes top 4, top 5 shouts in the West now with Arena at the helm. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this season unfolds. With that said, though, there was a lot of other offseason activity, right? Let's start with the most prominent, I think, outgoing name. 2 of those names. We'll start with the one up top because I think that there was a massive shift in your front line, right? So looking at someone like Jeremy Abobasi, right? And just what he means for, as a Quakes fan to you, what his departure from the club kind of means for what Arena wants to do on the field, right? So when you assess this move, right, and this move came prior to those 2 massive forwards you've landed, How did you feel receiving that news that Ebobisse was moving on to LAFC?
I have massive respect for Jeremy Ebobisse. Anytime I had the opportunity to ask him a press conference question for him to speak in front of the media, he had the utmost respect, but he wasn't a BSer either. He was always giving his straightforward thoughts and opinions, and he wore his heart on his sleeve. Like when things were going well, he was ecstatic, but he was also had that focus. It's like, okay, this game is good, but now we're on to the next one. And that's a true competitor there. When things weren't going so well, he wasn't going to sugarcoat it. And I think that's why that it felt inevitable that for both the club and for him that things were going to part ways. And the type of person and the type of player he is, even long after he had left Portland Timbers fans are still monitoring his progress with his new clubs, still hoping that he could someday return to them because that's how much people appreciate him, both as a person and a player. And for everything he does off the field, Black Players for Change, he's one of many hardworking individuals in that front, helping use soccer as a tool for greater social change during a time in the United States and in the world where that is a very important message that continuously needs to be sent, especially, looking at La Liga right now with the last few weeks. But I do think that he's going to very much benefit LAFC. I think that it's almost a guarantee. I'm expecting him to score against us when we play LAFC. I think that because he's such a rigid striker, I think it's going to simplify things for the other attacking talents that LAFC have at their disposal, but also it's going to maximize still the output that Dennis Bouanga can. Maybe the goals tally is not going to be quite as absurdly high as it usually is, but his goal contribution tally is always going to be absurdly high. It's just going to be more on the assist side of things. For him to be such an elite forward as well as winger, you bring in Ebobisse, Bouanga's like, okay, cool, I'm going to be a winger now. That's problem solved there. So LAFC are going to be very, very dangerous. If they already weren't, they're going to be even more dangerous.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Yeah, I think that I wish him the best of luck, even if he is going to an LA team. I think that he's going to have a great opportunity to remind everyone the player he is. He's definitely starting caliber. He's still higher in the starting caliber among all the starting forwards in Major League Soccer. I think that this environment, this system in LAFC is going to play to his strengths. If he can stay healthy, he's going to have a really successful season. As long as that hole was filled, that I was going to be okay with it, because I think you sometimes just need a fresh start, but you cannot just not replace Jeremy Ebobisse. So until we figured out which two players are coming in to fill the striker void, I was a little nervous because, like, okay, are we sliding Amal Pellegrino from winger to striker, or giving more minutes to Useni Buddha and Preston Judd, both of which still have a bit more to prove at the MLS level? I was a little bit more nervous about that, as much as I love those players. So I'm feeling a little bit better about the departure now than I was back when it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And really quickly, just to kind of add to this, right? Another key departure in the midfield. I know some Quakes fans, were maybe divided in terms of opinion on this player, right? But as someone who watched him as a neutral or an opposing fan when we played against the Quakes, I always thought he put in a good shift. I thought Jackson Yueill, you look at what he offered, right, was good enough to sometimes get into, it might be the camp cupcake or whatever for the U.S. men's national team, but still had opportunities to get those caps as well. So offers a lot of good experience, and he's someone that Bruce Arena won't get to work with as part of his new tenure. So really quickly, can you offer any context to how you felt about that one?
Jackson Yueill has been our captain for the last 4 or 5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. And he came through, he was a super draft pick, and with the way that Major League Soccer is structured, with the way the sport is, super draft picks always have a lot of potential, but they're not a guaranteed success compared to draft picks in other sports. So you always have to work a little bit harder, especially if you're coming out of college 21, 22, 23 years old, when most academy players across the world are coming in and getting experience 17, 18, 19. For Jackson to immediately make that jump to MLS, to be a key figure for pretty much his entirety of his San Jose Earthquakes career, earn that captaincy, and be more of a strong, silent leader. He's not going to be in your face. He's not going to be, if he played against the Galaxy of David Beckham, he's not going to be yelling against David Beckham like some of our other players might. But he has that really strong leadership style, and everyone respects him. Other mainstays in our locker room, like guys like Tommy Thompson, can't say enough great things about him. And he just feels like the type of person that you'd want to hang out with and grab a beer with. In terms of his talent, one of my co-hosts at Tectonic Takes, Abram, is very bullish about how incredible Jackson Ewell is among Major League Soccer midfielders. He's very versatile. He can play as a deep-lying playmaker, even though that's not his strength. He's more of like an 8, not too advanced, not too far back. He can connect those two roles efficiently with the right midfield trio. But he is definitely a player that if you remove him from the Quakes lineup, there's gaps in the midfield that aren't there that need to be filled. And he's really efficient, always giving 100%. And he's part of that exchange between the new best friends, the New England Revolution and San Jose Earthquakes. A lot of players going from one end of the country to the other. We'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. They do happen to play each other this season. So we are going to see a big reunion when that happens, I'm sure.
Oh, man. We're chomping at the bit over here. I can't wait, to be honest.
Airlines abound now.
Yeah, man, there's going to be headlines. And headlines beyond what we've seen in 2024, right? Most teams used to get excited just seeing Quakes pop up on the schedule. And now I think we're going to be talking about something quite different. And so on that front, right, you mentioned it already. We won't tease it anymore. This new attacking powerhouse that has kind of been created, MLS proven talent coming in, reshaping this front line that you now have. And man, you got to be excited. There's no way you're not excited about the likes of Chicho Arango and Josef Martinez coming in under the direction of Bruce Arena to shift how the Quakes look up front. When that news broke, what was your reaction?
Just incredible excitement. I believe we first found out about Chicho Arango, and then a few days later, while we're still pinching ourselves that Chicho Arango is coming to Earthquakes. Oh yeah, guess what? Josef Martinez is coming too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible. Like not one, but two top quality forwards coming to San Jose Earthquakes. This is weird because usually we're not in the mix for those types of players. We're usually an afterthought. Maybe we're in the conversations, but usually it ends up going somewhere else. I think of like an Alan Pulido, for example. We were so excited about the thought of him coming to the Earthquakes. And then he decides to go to Sporting Kansas City. And he's been one of those players whenever we face Kansas City that he's just been that reminder. It's like, what could have been? But now we don't have to worry about that. We can focus on this current present where we have some great players to look forward to making themselves known among the Quakes fans, among the Quakes staff, and they're going to get straight to work, and they're going to have plenty of opportunities to add to their goals tallies cumulative throughout their careers because they've got some great midfielders to provide them service.
Yeah, absolutely. As a follow-up question to the reaction, do you believe, just what you know about your team, how you think these guys might shape up and what they'll offer up front, do you believe this is a partnership, a strike partnership, or will they just simply complement each other and both be kind of seen as a striker one option that Bruce Arena will have to kind of decide for himself?
So in their introductory press conference, Bruce Arena was asked, have you got an idea which of these two are going to start? Bruce Arena responded, who says we can't start both? So in typical vague answer, but it is telling that it's not out of the realm of possibility. And then immediately my mind goes to a lot of different places. So naturally, I feel like because Chicho Arango is currently in the peak of his powers, Josef Martinez, mainly due to his nasty, devastating injury that we're glad he's made a full recovery from, he's not quite at that Atlanta United stage of his career. But I'm still happy to have Josef Martinez because looking at how he was able to contribute to a Montreal side in a similar situation as the San Jose Earthquakes, where there's less players around him compared to, LAFC or even RSL, he was able to make do with that situation and help get Montreal into some impactful games. So he's still very much a key contributor. But because of that, if it's a situation where we're starting one of those two, Arango probably gets the lead over Martinez, in my opinion. And still, if you're a tired defender and you see Josef Martinez warming up, you are not going to be happy with the sight of that, because that is a devastating player to have coming off the bench.
Oh man.
If that were to happen, I could see someone like Amal Pellegrino, who was usually one of the starting wingers alongside Espinoza, and then you had Hernan Lopez as the attacking midfielder. He would likely be the natural substitution at that point, based on where Amal Pellegrino is at in his career, the minutes that he's probably been logging, especially when he was a high utilization player back in Norway before he moved here. So that would probably be the textbook way to incorporate all these attacking players. But if we were to do something like a 3-5-2, that would be very interesting as well. Now, that would put a lot of emphasis on someone like Carlos Gruezo, who is our best defensive midfielder, or perhaps a Mark Anthony Kaye, who can also play that role to really cover that back line, and have question marks over both those players and their ability to do so. So offensively, very exciting. If this goes back to some of the high intensity games that we've seen San Jose Earthquakes play under Matias Almeida, or in their Goonies year back in 2012, you're winning 3-2, you're winning 2-1, or you're getting a 2-2 draw, then I could see it working that way. But I feel like there's still going to be a lot of other decisions that have to be made, some adjustments, maybe a few other players coming in the summer to see this team get to its full potential. But as far as the work that you can do in one winter, you can't be disappointed, at least in the high quality of attackers coming in.
Definitely can't be disappointed. Like, there should be zero disappointment in San
Absolutely
Jose.
not. No.
Yeah, you definitely can't be.
Puts the window as, like, at the very least a B in sense of like the players and the quality you're bringing in. The only reason I would struggle to give it a higher grade is because there's still other areas that you would address, and I'll get into that in just a moment here. When it comes to both these players, I feel like they have similar play styles. They're both clinical. They have relentless motors. They can combine with each other, so Chicho can set up Martinez and vice versa, but they won't be expected to do that whole lot, because that's likely what Espinoza is going to be doing. It's likely what Lopez is going to be doing. Another key player that unfortunately we won't have this season, Carlos Acapo. I enjoyed watching him play. He would have been perfect in that setup too, attacking down the right. But even like Paul Marie, for example, he's been more adventurous as he's grown in confidence and gained more experience in this league for the San Jose Earthquakes. There's going to be a lot of players looking to give these high-quality players every opportunity to flex that muscle and to find the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think attacking wise, there's going to be a lot of excitement again, whether it's a partnership or it's more of a 1-2 scenario. One kind of coming in to offer fresh legs to the other. And again, with depending on how many matches we're talking about at any point throughout the season, rotation. You just think about those things too, right? Arena will have now multiple, you could say, clinical options to really kind of go with, and I think Quakes fans just have to be excited about that. But you mentioned something right there before, right? The team identity now, and where the biggest opportunities still really lie for the Quakes to improve while we have time for that to take place. Preseasons are kicking off everywhere. We're going to be learning a lot about all of our respective teams. So when you think about where the Quakes are right now, and we'll see a little bit more of them, right? Some of the upcoming preseason matches, but based on on who's left, who's been brought in, where are really still the biggest opportunities for improvement in the squad?
Yeah, I think if there's an identity in this team now, it's now currently a glass cannon, someone that's going to dish out a lot of damage, but also have to endure a lot of damage as well. And you're just going to have to grind out some results. You're going to have to really dig in defensively with the players that you do have. That's a kind of pressurous environment that sometimes can leave a lot of players vulnerable in terms of their place in the team and where their prospects might be. Tanner Beeson, for example, he was a center back that now is headed toward the New England Revolution, but he had to play a lot more often than expected because of our defensive situations. We had some players suspended or missed due to injuries, and he was able to solidify a role, but for whatever reason, he eventually ended up being one of the parts of the defense that was struggling. And I think it's just really tough environment for him and a lot of defenders. The ones that adapt most and thrive in the San Jose Earthquakes are guys like Nathan prior to his injury and departure, and now Rodriguez, center backs that are comfortable moving forward, linking the defense to the attack, not afraid to give a challenge. And it can be a little reckless sometimes, but they almost make it look intentional and precise in the recklessness.
Sure.
So that's something that we're still going to look to see how some of our newer defenders that came in last season, like a Bruno Wilson, can step in as well. But definitely as a glass can identity, I think we still need to bring in at least another midfielder and at least one other defender, especially a center back. I feel like that's an area that we could use a little bit more. And some contributions from young players like Daniel Mooney. I think that he's still good enough that he can step in while still being able to accept a smaller role as he's learning how to play at this level more consistently. He had some really good games for us as a center back. And also someone like up top, Usani Buddha, where he didn't have too many opportunities. He had a brief loan spell at Monterey Bay in the USL Championship. He might need another loan spell to get some more game time, but I saw that he was making a lot of great runs. He was getting some opportunities. He just needs to find the finishing touch. And maybe if he gets subbed on, he gets to play with at least one of an Arango or Martinez. If 2 or 3 defenders are covering one of the star strikers, then Usani Buddha is going to find a mismatch and capitalize on that. So there's still a lot of areas in this roster where I'd like to see players step up, or maybe we need to bring more players in. But this is just the beginning of this process in year 1 under Bruce Arena.
Yeah. Again, there's still time, right? There's time for everybody. That's for any fan base who's still freaking out, seeing the Quakes making moves, LAFC making moves, everybody else, right? Like there's still time for things to happen. But I do get that there's a sense of FOMO sometimes that takes over, right? And you kind of just want to be able to applaud your front office for making decisions that you feel like your team really need to embrace for this coming season. The Quakes are doing that, man. And look, there's still possibly more to come. So with that in mind, before we kind of plug everything Ivan and Tectonic Takes, let me just ask you, let's make a bold pick here. Okay. Bold take,
right?
A tectonic take. The expectation for 2025. Let's not dance around it. You guys, we all know where the Quakes finished last season. What's the improvement on the table going to look like now for the upcoming 2025 season? What's your bet? How many spots are you moving up?
Well, because you mentioned that a lot of prominent creators are overestimating the improvement that the Quakes are going to be, it almost feels like a tectonic take to undersell the improvement. I think that there is going to be improvement, but I think we're still expecting a little bit too much to jump all the way to the playoffs. So I'm going to say 10th. That's going to be my definitive spot, but more likely in the 10th through 12th range. I don't think we're going to be among the worst anymore, but it's just the state of MLS right now. It's a bloodbath just to get to the playoffs. A lot of people may hate the expanded playoffs to 9 in the West and 9 in the East, but if you look at the teams that just missed out from either conference, you're looking at some pretty solid teams that didn't make it, whether it be, FC Dallas, Portland, Philadelphia, Toronto, teams that have great players. If you're saying that, Federico Bernardeschi isn't enough to get to the MLS playoffs, then there's no guarantees that even a Chicho Arango and Josef Martinez tandem is going to automatically get the Quakes into the playoffs. So wait and see, but it's going to be really exciting. They're not going to be beaten down as often as they used to be. They're going to be in more games. There's going to be some dramatic upsets and fun matches, back and forth, pendulum swings. And, of course, we got to get our points quotas from Seattle Sounders and LAFC. Hopefully we can get back to collecting those quotas from LA Galaxy as well. But definitely those first two.
Those Cali Classicos are going to hit now. They definitely will. And look, man, you're right. The West, too, there's always been so much talk about East dominance over the West, at least in recent seasons. I do think that changes this year. I don't know for whatever reason, right? Whether it's Austin leveling up, Dallas not being scared to go through a full rebuild, moving guys like Ferreira and Arriola over to Seattle. San Diego's now in the mix. It's got an even 15 teams on both sides now. And we've seen just how impressive expansion sides have been just coming in their inaugural season, right? There doesn't seem to be any sort of missteps. And we've seen that from the likes of Austin with their success, St. Louis with their success, right? I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But make no mistake, man, the eyes will be on the Quakes. I think we're all kind of excited to see what activity is remaining in the transfer market, combining that with the fact that there's some strong direction at the helm now of the club. Man, I think that first month of the season, those first few weeks where Arena's kind of sinking his feet into the ground and trying to get a good handle on the side, we're all going to be paying attention pretty closely. And I think if it's very positive, I think we'll start hearing those playoff shouts start to really get loud. Top four shouts maybe starting to get loud. So we'll see how it all unwinds, man. But from here, Ivan, I really appreciate you jumping on with us, man. This was a fantastic show. I think if we get another bombazo in terms of a transfer, we'll see you back on the channel hopefully sometime soon. I think it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't even have to be a Quakes transfer. It could be MLS, and it could be like as we get into international friendlies, because we both follow the international game pretty thoroughly. Have a bunch of fun calling those games with you, such as Belgium and Ukraine back in the Euros. So definitely happy to continue these conversations.
Absolutely, man. All right. Well, before we go, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to plug anything you see fit. So the next minute or so, completely yours. Go for it.
Yeah. So if you want further thoughts on the Chicho, Arango and Josef Martinez signings, as well as our previous thoughts on all the exchanges between New England Revolutions and San Jose Earthquakes, you're going to want to check out the Tectonic Takes YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at Tectonic Takes as well. I'm holding it down as well on Blue Sky, but you can also find me on Twitter in the handle you see here. And my personal project right now is I go through all the matches that are available to U.S. viewers on streaming services and channels and provide match recommendations for each weekend. So since this is probably going to be up on Friday, January 24th, let me give you just a taste of some of those recommendations that you can expect to see from that weekend, or that you should see. I would start things off with Torino versus Cagliari on Friday. Then we'll get into some big matches like Leipzig versus Leverkusen, Napoli versus Juventus, and the biggest in my heart, Chivas versus Tigres that night on Saturday.
Let's go.
And then Lazio versus Fiorentina is going to be a big one as well on Sunday. And then we'll finish things up on Monday, January 27th with the doubleheader of Venezia versus Hellas Verona, a 6-pointer there, and then some EFL Championship action. We could see one or both of these teams in the Premier League next season. Burnley taking on Leeds United. So if you're interested in those types of match recommendations, I'll provide the link of the latest article to put a plug in the description, but I'll also tweet those articles on my account as well.
Yes, absolutely, Ivan. And like he said, guys, everything that he just mentioned as far as the match recommendations, the Tectonic Takes channel, his own personal Twitter, if you want to chat with him regarding anything football or soccer-wise, all in the description, notes down below. Do not miss out. Again, Ivan's a massive friend of the show, but more importantly, just super knowledgeable when it comes to this game. You're not going to want to miss out on that. All right, guys. All right. So we're going to call it there, man. Ivan, sincerely, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Big season ahead for you guys. Get excited. I'm hoping to share some of that same excitement as a Dallas fan. We'll see what kind of moves.
Yeah, big season for Bay Area soccer, of course. Just want to also mention, what Oakland Roots and Oakland Soul are doing going into the former A's Coliseum. It's going to be exciting for them. And year 2 for Bay FC, making playoffs in their inaugural season. They're incredible players as well. But, of course, my main excitement, San Jose Earthquakes. It's going to be
– Let's
go.
Let's go, man. All right, guys. I appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, if you're brand new to the channel, like the video down below. Subscribe to Goals TV for more weekly Major League Soccer content, along with several other forms of footy that we bring right to this channel. Okay,
yeah, so plenty of stuff you're going to want to see.
Absolutely. From everybody here at Wake Up MLS, my name's Jose. That's Ivan. We'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah, see ya.